Okay, now we're gonna create our controller in Laravel. So to do that, let's go. You have to go to your command line, okay, and go to open the project folder, which is in our case is profile. So that is in drive the exam7 htdocs, and let's go to our profile folder, which is our project folder. Okay, and then after that we have to put in the command um, of Laravel using its dependency, which is the artisan. So the command would be php artisan, okay, then make controller, okay, and then the name of the controller, okay. So in our case, the name of our controller will be profile controller, okay, and then just press enter. Okay, then controller has been created, and then we have to open our project folder profile using our preferred editor. In this case, I will be using a PHP Storm. Okay. So yeah. So this is our client of this is our client side, okay, which is the folder for our Angular. Now I'll be opening up our Laravel backend. So new project, and then we'll go to, where is it located? Drive D, okay, exam7, and then htdocs, okay, and this profile folder. This is where our Laravel files reside, okay, and let's press yes in window. Okay, so we just need to open now this one. All right, so first we have created the controller, right? So it is located in the app folder, http folder, then controllers, okay. So this is the one we have just created, okay, the profile controller. So that's it, okay. So the next one we have to do is create a database in our MySQL using the PHP myadmin. So first we have to go to, so first we need to go to our exam panel, yeah, this one, and then this is our MySQL, right? So we'll go to our admin console or the PHP myadmin. We just have to create our database name. Okay, so our database name for this project is profile, and create. So that's it, we have just created our profile database name, and then we have to go back to our Laravel folder and go to that env file to set up our database connection. So just look for the DB connection, which is this one, MySQL, right? And we just need to modify the database. So this would be profile, okay. Our username, we're using localhost, so we just make our username root. Password, we haven't set up our password yet, so since we are in developing stage and we're using a local host, yeah, it's alright to have a blank password or having not setting up your username. Okay, but if you will be uploading this in your live site, you have to have set up your username and your password. Okay, so that's it. We already installed .ini file. Okay, and else? Then we have to install our model. Okay, we have installed our controller. We have created our database name. Now we have to install our model in Laravel. To do that, go to your command line again. Okay, and then just put in the command php artisan, okay, make model, okay, and then okay, we had to create our model name will be profile as well, and dash m. Okay, so then press enter. This dash m, just for FYI, this dash m means a migration file. So in order for the Laravel app to monitor all your database changes, we use a migration file. Okay, so we have created a migration file. So it's created in, as you would see in your profile folder in your Laravel. You have the let's see, I think it's, yeah, the date. Look on the database folder inside that it got migrations folder. Just go there, and this is what we have created, the create profiles table .php. Okay, so what we have to do is set up our migration file. Okay, Laravel is using what we call Eloquent. So that's one of the database dependency. This is the schema setup. So profiles, this is the table that will be created. Okay, and then by default, Laravel had these two fields in the table: profiles, the ID, and the timestamps. But as you could see, we still got to add three more fields. Okay, as you would remember, if you go to your front layout, sorry, when you go to your uh, front end layout in the add page, so we still got three more fields to add. So full name, age, and the photo, which is image file. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to add that in our schema. Okay, so that it will add that fields. So what we have to do, I'll just to save time, I just need to copy and paste those entries and explain it to you. Okay, all right, so we have added another field, full name with a data type string, then age with a data type integer, and photo is a long text. Okay, so photo is an image file, and it should be in MySQL table or database. It should be a blob type. Okay, but in Laravel there's no such thing as block type, so I think the nearest data type for this is long text. So what we have to do, we just need to write it in the table, and then we're gonna go to MySQL later on and modify the data type into blob. Right, so now we are done with our schema, and just for a while I just have to explain to you what does this migration file do. So this is only a way to write it on the database, and we got two functions. One is for the op function, that means to write in the table, and done function, which is just to check if it exists. Okay, and then if we when we command down, it will drop the table. Okay, profiles. Okay, we just set it up, but it's not yet created. To do that, just go to your command line and just type in this command, in the command php artisan migrate. Okay, oops. Okay, so at the moment the latest version of Laravel is having a bug. Okay, it shows max key length error 767 bytes. So to do that, we have to do something of its configuration. So what we have to do is to app, where is it? Yeah, app providers, app folder. Then inside that, go to providers folder. So again, it's app and then providers folder, and go to I think the SAP service provider. Okay. And then we have to put in this location, okay, the schema assign. Okay. And then in the boot method or function, we have to put in schema default string length 199. So it should remove that error. Again, we go to our command line. Okay, just need to clear this up. Okay, and then again our command, which is php artisan migrate. Okay, so what would happen is when we press enter, it will automatically copy our the content of our migration files in our MySQL database. Okay, so just press enter. Alright, so we've copied the create users tables. Those are by default uh, tables in Laravel, and then create password, and this is the one that we have modified, the create profiles table. So when we check our profile database, let's check it, you could see that the files are there. Okay, when we check our profiles table and structure, okay, you could see there those are our fields, right? So this is the default ID and the timestamp. Okay, created that and updated that. Okay, these are automatic, and what we have inserted is a full name with varchar. Okay, and then age with integer data type and photo long text. So but as I said earlier on, this should be a block data type, the photo. So what we have to do, we have to change it because it accepts an image file. So it will be best that our data type for this should be long blob. Okay. And then just press save. Alright. We could even modify the full name if you want how many characters. At the moment, the maximum is 191. Okay, a set, but we could modify it. But we could leave as it is. Okay. Okay. What does now? Yeah, that's it. So we're done with our database. Okay, now we will be setting up our services API in our Angular. So let's get back to our Angular folder. Okay, so that is, as you could remember, _g underscore projects and then the profile. We just need to right click it. So to open up our command line, which is the git bash. Okay, alright, and then we have to create the services using the template creation in Angular. Okay, so to do that, we could create our service in Angular by putting the command ng g for generate service. Okay, and then the folder name, let's make our folder name services, and then slash the name of the service. So we would name our service course profile. Okay. Oh, we still get spec file for some reason, but anyway. So let's check our using a PHP storm editor. Let's check if it has been generated. Let's see. Okay, using our PHP storm editor, let's check if the service file has been created. Okay, so yeah, we have created the services here, and then yeah, we have here the profile service and profile spec.ts. Okay, we just need to remove this one. We don't need the spec file, so okay. So after creating the service .ts profile.service.ts, we have to check our app module.ts. Okay, we have to check this one. Okay, so unlike the creation of component, it's automatically adding up an import file in our app module.ts, but for services that we created, it didn't added here in the import. So what we have to do is we have to put in the import section. Okay, so yeah, so here we just added the import. Okay, and then we call it profile service from. This is the location of our profile service. So that's in the root slash just missing here. You should have your services. Okay, and then profile that service. So this is it. Okay, from the root. Okay, dot services. Okay, and then profile that service. No need to include the extension file.ts. Okay. So from the previous creation, bear in mind that when you create a component, you should be put it aside from the import. You have to put it below the ng module that's under declaration if it's a component. But if it's a module, you have to define it inside the imports. Okay. And lastly, if it is service, you have created a service, you have to put it in the providers section. Okay, here inside that. What we have to do, we have to copy this. Okay, and then put it inside the provider section. All right, and then let's go to our profile service file. Okay, profile service file, and then we have to put some settings here as well. We have to add here the import HTTP. Okay, so we have to import the HTTP dependency, Angular HTTP dependency, because we will be putting our API calls here inside. So there's a need for the HTTP dependency. Then aside from the HTTP, we just need to add the headers because we'll be using that as well as the request options. Okay, and then we also need to have a reactive extension of the Angular. So to do that, we just need to import this one, rxjs slash add slash operator slash map. So the mapping will be enabled when we put our API calls here inside. Okay, so you would see more of that later on. What else do we need to set up? So under your export class, okay, inside that we have to put in our local Laravel server. Okay, so as you remember earlier on, we have set up our Laravel in our exam, right? So and then we set up our shortcut for the URL, which is through the virtual host. So when we type HTTP profile, it goes to our Laravel default page. So this is the server. Okay, so we define that so that we could call on that server in our API calls later on. We have to set up our headers as well. Okay, so we have to define, okay, we have to create the variable headers. Okay, so these are variable headers, and then of course our data type will be headers. This is a class that we have imported here above. Yeah, that's the one, headers, new headers. Then the option says default data type, any data type. Okay, we define as any anyway. Okay, and then in the constructor we have to inside the constructor, again in its parameter we have to define our HTTP. Alright, this is HTTP variable has been defined as HTTP, which is one of the options that we have imported in the Angular HTTP. Okay, dependency inside the constructor. By initially during initialization we have to define our headers. Okay, what's the purpose of these headers and options? Okay, in order for your API to communicate from Angular to Laravel, okay, it's gonna send a file, right? So we have to define our header, or else we would encounter an error, which is something like a flight mode error, or file not found, or header error. Okay, Okay, it's been long for me to debug it, what happened. So yeah, but finally I have figured out that we have to add a header definition for the file in order for our API calls to communicate or to be sent, okay, to our server. Okay. So here, as you can see, we appended the uh, uh, encryption type. It should be a multi-part and form data, because as you could see in our page that we have created, okay, we are accepting, aside from text, we are accepting a photo, okay, a photo file, okay. So that's what we need to define the encryption type, a multi-part form data. So it will both accept the text file and a photo or an image file. Then we have to define the content type, application JSON, because it will be converted into JSON file during API calls. Okay, and then X requested, of course, it's an XML HTTP request. Okay, this is the main API setting. Okay, and then we have to add the options here, request options, web headers and designs. Okay, and later on we're gonna add here all our API calls.